Yeah.
Hello. Good morning or good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon already. Holy cow.
Yeah. Look at all our friends coming on, Jill. This is my all-time favorite part.
Oh, good. I see a lot of familiar names
I
and new
see some
names.
familiar names too.
Awesome.
I love
Hello,
them.
Jacqueline. Hello, Michelle. Hello, everybody.
Hi, Crystal. Oh, hi, Mary. I'm going to see you a little later. I think we have some time set up to chat. Hi, Denise.
And Matt. Hello, Matt.
Hi, Matt. I haven't seen you in so long.
Awesome.
Yay.
Great. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining us this afternoon. I always love when I get to host events with Shari. As you all know, love sessions with Shari. And today, a much needed topic that we feel tends to fly under the radar that is so important, especially given this day and age. So we're really excited for this. For those who do not know me, I see some familiar faces and names, but for those who are new, my name is Jill. I am the client success specialist and event specialist here with Amala Vida. I am also the health and wellness coach here, so I get to do lots and lots of fun things here. And then of course we have our career specialist, Shari. And today we are talking about ageism in job descriptions and how to navigate them and read between the lines. And this is one of Shari's, again, kind of under the radar expertises. So we're really excited to learn from her. Just a few kind of just general housekeeping. You all are on mute automatically. I know Shari does not mind asking questions throughout. So if you want, I'm gonna go on mute and turn my video off for this, but I will still be here watching the chat box. So please go ahead, put your questions, comments, introduce yourselves. I love that you guys have already doing that. Go ahead and put everything in the chat box, and then throughout, Shari, if you invite people to unmute themselves, you can, but we'll just, for the sake of making sure everyone's questions get answered, house them all in the chat box, and then we'll just kind of ask them throughout. If not, we will definitely have time at the end for Q&A. So good to go. All right, I think that is all. I will go ahead and hand it over to Shari. Thanks, Shari.
Hooray. Okay, guys, so just so you know, we are trying something new. We have this closed captioning thing happening. And I've never had this happen before when I'm speaking. So I know if it's a little distracting, you can let me know, but we're just trying to make sure that we can get everybody who needs to have this information. So welcome to Ageism in Job Descriptions with me, Shari Santoriello. I'm a career and leadership coach here at Amala Vida. For those of you who don't know what Amala Vida is a career, leadership, life, and health and wellness coaching company. Our whole job here as coaches is to help you love your life with whatever that means. So for some of you, it's career related, some is health and wellness, some is leadership, some is life, and some is all of that. And we can move through all the different spaces. So Amala Vida actually means love your life. And that's what we try to do here. We have proprietary e-coaching technology, which is a makeup of exercises and modules and questions that are very intuitive, and it helps you get the information you need to get to whatever your next step is. So very important. This is me. Obviously I look different. For those of you who have already sat in on some of my calls, you've heard this. This is pre-COVID hair. This is current COVID hair. It just is. All right, so let's go over today's agenda just really quickly so that we can get into the bulk of this stuff. First is going to be some logistics, some housekeeping. Second, first topic is reading between the lines. The second is how do you leverage your professional experience And lastly is tips to break through that clutter and sort of make sense of it all. As Jill mentioned, for me, I have no problem if you take yourself off mute and ask a question. I cannot see the chat, so I don't know if you're speaking or if you're asking any questions. So I don't know those things. So feel free to unmute yourself and sort of say, hey, I have a question. I want to ask you something. Happy to do that. That falls in line with my coaching style. Everybody coaches slightly differently here at ALV. So for me, I'm happy to do it on the fly. I think it's really important and impactful for you to get your answers when they're at forefront for you. Today's sessions are recorded. Recording will be shared because you all want to hear me speak just a second time. I know that. For your benefit, be present, take notes, ask questions, and most importantly, connect. And what I mean by connect is please put your LinkedIns into the chat and start connecting with each other. That's how you build your networks. Again, I can't see the chat, so at some point, if someone, Jill, if you have a second, can you drop my LinkedIn in? I forgot to drop it in. Connect with me also. Thank you. And connect with each other. Lastly, ALV does awesome content. All the coaches here have a specialty area, and we share a ton of valuable content through our events and our workshops and our trainings. So please, please, please go to our page, hit events, and you can enroll in all of our trainings, and they're just so well worth your time and just so helpful. Good quality information here. Okay, first, ageism. Has anyone actually, excuse me, experienced ageism? Can I get someone to tell me if they have and what it's about and how it feels? Anybody? Jill, do we got anybody sharing an experience?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, well, I will tell you, ageism, sometimes people think it only has to do with an older worker. Ageism actually goes both ways. So you can be discriminated against because you're an older worker, and you could also be discriminated against if you're a younger worker. Age discrimination, the Employment Act from 1967, the ADEA, talks specifically about protections for the older worker or the worker over 40. But today we're going to talk about both. And even though lots and lots of states have protection for workers over 40, many companies have learned how to get around this, and that's what we're going to cover. So I want to make sure that you're understanding some of the language. So here we are. We're going to read between the lines. So the ad may say, this is a startup atmosphere, or we're looking for an energetic person for a young company. Sometimes they'll even say words like digital native, physical ability to, any of those types of words. And what it does is it certainly conjures up the image that you see on the screen. We're going to play ping pong, we're hanging in a common space, we're brainstorming. It leads you to believe that these are workers who are willing to blur the lines between professional and personal life balance. These are workers who want to socialize after work. So what do you think that really means? Anybody? I could tell you this. Here's what it means. It's this. So it's excluding the older worker with words like that. Very difficult to say exactly where the older worker lies, but let me just say this. If you think that wearing jeans and sneakers to work is not a good idea, you're an older worker. So that's one of the delineation pieces. So already they're telling you in the job description, because they can't put an age, that they don't want you if you're over 40. Here's something, what does it say? 3 to 5 years of experience required, or 7 to 10 years of experience required. This one's super tricky. And the reason why it's super tricky is because the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission has a very clear statement that a minimum experience level is okay, but it's got to be open-ended on that other side. That's what gives that range. So hiring companies have taken this a step further by closing that experience loop. This one is particularly harmful to both the older and the younger worker. So for the closing the loop at 5 years, companies trying to ward off the older worker at this point. What they're trying to say is, we want somebody younger. We don't, if you have more than 5 years, don't apply. You're going to be what's called overqualified. Conversely, if it says 7 to 10 years expired, experience required, we're counting out the younger worker. What we're saying is, you don't have enough experience. We don't think that you have what it takes. You're immature. We don't want a recent college grad or someone who's looking to change jobs after their first year. Also, not allowed to do. And it takes out a whole bunch of the workforce that may be very good for this job. They may have high potential to learn, and they may be a good fit at the company. But by saying those kinds of experience levels, you're taking people out on both ends. Oh, I love this one. Proven experience or high performer. That's what it says. What do you think it means? High performer, proven experience. Yep, it's saying young workers need not apply. It's not that hard to figure out that if you have proven experience or a high performer, you probably haven't worked very long, so you can't get those words. So we're looking here for the older worker rather than the younger worker. Again, taking a whole group of people out of applying when you see those words. Can you guys think of any other examples? Really, really big one is culture fit. When you see that in a job description, culture fit. It's not dissimilar to startup atmosphere. The main difference there is that startup atmosphere is very clearly asking for the younger person, whereas culture fit is letting you know that we're expecting you to adapt to what's going on right here, right now. So again, this one can apply to both the older and the younger workforce. We want to make sure that as a new employee, you can assimilate with the existing staff. This is where ALV comes in substantially in determining the differences between some of this language when you're looking for a job, to help you understand which jobs are appropriate and which jobs you may or may not fit well for, especially the culture fit piece. Culture fit is super, super important when you're job searching, because you want to make sure you're going to be happy at work. Like I said earlier, ALV, Ama La Vida, means love your life. You spend a lot of hours at work, so you want to make sure it's going to be a place that you're comfortable, that you feel good. And that's why learning some of these little words is helpful. With culture fit, it's important to know that the company aligns with the kinds of things you like to do. And I don't necessarily mean play tennis, although that may be one of them, but you know, what does the leadership do? What does the company support? A really, really good way to get that information is to use Google, to use LinkedIn, to use Glassdoor. To read about what people are saying about the company will give you some idea of how they do things and how that works for you. Do we have any questions yet? Are we good? Jill, I'd just like to touch base before we move on.
We are good.
We are good. Okay. So before we go into leveraging your strengths, I want to tell you some other little pieces you may have heard throughout the time. You may hear digital native. A digital native is somebody who's been born using digital technology as opposed to a digital immigrant. So a digital native is a younger worker, and you may see this language in a job posting. That means digital immigrants need not apply, hence again the older worker. So how do we leverage our strengths and our skills to cut through this? So one of the biggest things to do is to be able to show your adaptability on a resume, through your LinkedIn profile, through your networking. You need to be able to show that that there's value in your experience if you're an older worker, and the ability and willingness to learn both as the younger and the older worker. You know, hey, I love diversity and I like learning new things, and I'm interested in working with people who are younger or older, and showing that you can have immediate impact and value to the organization, regardless of your age, is very, very important. Again, this is something that you can do on your resume, in your networking. And when I say in your networking, this is where you're utilizing your LinkedIn, you're utilizing your other social medias, you're talking to other employees or people that you know and talking about your skills, finding out where your gaps are, what do you have to fill in, who should you be speaking to, is there new industry information that's relevant that you really want to get a sense of. That's where this portion lives, and this is where you sort of can change your language so that you can be more adaptable, so that you can show what you're bringing to the table. Okay, so this is the hard part, is the breaking through the clutter. So I am not suggesting that you don't apply for jobs that are masking ageism through their job descriptions, not at all. What I'm actually suggesting is that you do apply for these jobs. Best way is optimize your resume. What does that mean? That means using the right language, using the keywords, making sure you understand what the job is, not keeping to just the old style. Find out what's being accepted. Is the company using an ATS system? Is your resume able to get through that system? Are you using the right language? Are you calling things the right terms? Because terms change over time. And what we used to call it when I was younger, because I'm an older worker, and what it's being called now could be different. And that's the difference between getting through that clutter and getting kicked out and showing that you're older. Another really good trick is pulling dates from your education. Granted, they're not allowed to age discriminate, but that doesn't mean that they don't. And a lot of companies will put through their ATS and the applicant tracking system, they'll put in a date of, if it's on a resume, throw it out. So pull your dates from your education. And again, it's not that they're not going to know how old you are when they see you, whether you're young or you're old, but it gets you through to that next level. Again, especially helpful, unfortunately, if you're a woman of childbearing years, because a lot of companies don't want that. They also don't want someone who's really close to retirement because they think you won't stay. So these are all just little tips to sort of get you through those initial pieces and break through that first time clutter. Keeping current is super important. Again, what does that mean, keeping current? That means knowing what's going on in your industry vertical so that you know what's happening, you know what the changes are. Are there new certifications that are being used? Do you need them? Should you get them? Is it going to enhance where you are? Is there new technology being used? Do you know how to use it? Knowing the old technology is not a negative because there is a value, and this goes back to earlier when I said, how do you leverage your skill, is being able to show your value for historical data. I think the pandemic actually showed that to us, that when some of the equipment wasn't working, I think in some of the state's unemployment systems, they actually needed to call back retired workers because they didn't know how to use the older technology. So it's important to have both, and to be able to let people know that you have both and that there's value in that historical data as well. But it's as important to keep current, because we're moving quick. Our society now moves very, very quickly. So you want to make sure that you are staying current, so that you're not hearing those age-related remarks that are going to pull you out of that market. So that's particularly important. Make sure that you're also utilizing your informal experiences. This is something that helps the younger and the older worker both tremendously. Very often we gain experience through stuff that we've done that wasn't paid or isn't a formal resume job. When you write your resume in your key skills area or in your summary, there's places to put that informal experience. And a lot of times that's what will bridge your gap. So if you're a younger worker, but you've done a lot of volunteer work, or you've worked alongside people over time, through an organization, that should be included in your resume. That's a valuable experience. Likewise, if you're changing industries as an older worker, you may have a vast amount of informal experience in something that you're looking to move to that you weren't paid for at a job. Again, key skills in your summary area is a really good place to sort of highlight those pieces. Next thing would be to be doing informational interviews. These are interviews that you do with people in the workplace to get a sense of if you like the company / industry. This is a great way also to break through that ageism piece, because this gives you the opportunity to talk to somebody in not a formal interview setting, get their feedback, which would allow you to sort of sometimes change your branding, change how you go about things, but also lets you know if there are gaps, are there things they're looking for in terms of age, and how you can combat that. But it also gives you the opportunity to give that company or those people information about yourself in a very casual way, which is helpful. So they can already start to see what your value is. And that, again, that's very important. Being able to show how you can contribute regardless of your age is important. Most businesses, it's about what can you do for me, right? What can you bring to me to make my situation better, or hit my pain point, or have a solution to my challenge? And that's where you need to be very clear in terms of ageism of what you can do. So brushing up on your interview skills is also a big thing to do, because nobody wants to hear, well, back in my day, and nobody also wants to hear about, well, when I was partying in my fraternity / sorority. So learning how to interview, how to answer behavioral questions, how to associate your accomplishments to what the job is asking for, regardless of age, again, sticking with accomplishment and results and value rather than age items. Anything that's an age-related comment works to your benefit. Again, learning the new language, especially in interviews. Interviews are now two-way conversations. So you want to be able to have a give and take with the interviewer. So you want to be able to know about the company, be able to talk about it thoughtfully and purposefully and intentionally. And again, this all takes practice, and this is different the way it has been done. So if you're the older worker, this is an area where you need to move forward on. Again, leveraging your network. I think I said it earlier. So if you haven't dropped your LinkedIn profile in the chat yet, you're going to want to do that so that you can connect, because leveraging your network is probably the key to overcoming anything in your job search. Again, when I work with clients, a lot of the work that we do is learning how to optimize your resume so that it's hitting all the right notes, especially with either younger workers and older workers. And that's what we're talking about here, both ends of this spectrum. The people in the middle section don't have as much difficulty because they can sort of straddle both the older and the younger worker profile. But my new graduates or 1 to 2 years out of school and older workers really are the ones that have the biggest challenges where this concerns. So when I work with clients, that's a lot of times what we'll work towards is learning how to read the job description. Is it a good fit? And then optimizing my piece to go with it. So how do we optimize our resume? How do we make sure we're filling in the gaps? How do we make sure that the language that we're using in interviews is appropriate, is answering the questions, learning how to ask questions, and then that leveraging your network piece, which is, who do you know? Who do you know that they know? And so on, and building that engagement on LinkedIn so that you can build your personal brand. What that does is it all goes back to that value and impact piece of how you can bring to an organization what your contribution is going to be. And that's really, at the end of the day, the bottom line. So when you work with a coach at ALV, myself, or many of our other coaches, we work really hard with you so that it's clear that you can bring value. And that's primarily what we want to do, because the best offense to any type of ageism is to show your value. That way you can have a positive impact on their company absolutely immediately. All right, any questions? We had no questions throughout the whole thing. Wow. Any questions?
We do have some questions.
All right, I love questions.
So we had a lot around what if they require proof of graduation? So someone said some ATS systems require the dates filled in, and also people asking, what year did you graduate in interview? So just, what do you do when you have to share those dates?
Okay.
And is there a way around that?
Okay, so there is. In the interview, that's a dicey question, right? Because that really falls right under the ADA Act, because again, it dates you and they're not allowed to ask your age. So that's one of the ways that they get around asking your age. You don't have to answer that question. Now, again, that becomes dicey in an interview. You want to answer all the questions. So you can, look, at that point, they've seen you face to face. You certainly can answer it, and then use a question at the end of that to turn it around on them and say, is that a problem? Or even something to the effect of talking to a technology that they're using, or talking to a framework that they're using that you're familiar with that would be considered more current if you think that it's an age-related question. Sometimes we read a little bit too much into it and it's not an age-related question. It's just, hey, when did you graduate? Because I had 75 friends who went there too. But it's dicey in the interview because you do not have to answer that question. In terms of the ATS systems, very few of them ask you for dates, but if they do, there is no way around that. Sometimes you could just put a period or an X or something just to fill the slot, if it's a required slot, a required field, and you can try that. But if it's required, there's no way for you to get around it. But that goes back to culture fit, and that gives you a lot of information about the company. If they are requiring that you put the date you graduated, then that tells you, sort of gives you some information about where they rank certain levels of experience. And again, this could be good or bad for either the older or the younger worker. It's not a specific one. They can ask you for transcripts. So government jobs, civil service type jobs, some lab jobs, some really high level corporate jobs will ask for transcripts. And if that's what their HR policy requires, because you have to meet a certain criteria, and again, you see a lot more of this in government and civic civil service jobs, if you have to meet a certain criteria based on their HR, they can ask for a transcript, but they cannot ask for your age. Did that answer whoever asked that question? If it didn't, please hop on and let us know. Okay, awesome.
That was a good one.
What else do we have?
I have a question.
Please ask.
Oh, can you hear me? Hi.
I can hear you. Hi.
This is Kendra Howard. I'm calling from the very cold state of Michigan. I have a kind of a reverse question problem. I just turned 50 this year, but I look younger than my age. So when people see me, they kind of look at me like, But then, I mean, I get it in reverse. Like, I know there's age discrimination because when people talk to me, they don't believe I'm as old as I am. So it depends on how you see me. If you see me, you don't believe my age. If you look at my resume, there's a disconnect. And I don't know how to deal with that.
So I'm going to say that a lot of people who might be on this call who are the older worker don't really feel as bad for you as you might want them to. That's the first thing. Second, happy birthday. 50 is awesome. I'm in my 50s and I think it's fantastic. This is an issue. And this is probably one of the unspoken parts of ageism, is that your resume is older than you visually look. So there's an assumption that you're not being honest. So you have to actually work twice as hard to, I don't want to say prove, because that's not really the right word, but truly show rather than tell what your impact has been. So for you, very important to have something that's quantifiable or have some kind of a number that can show an accomplishment or a result, something that's verifiable, as opposed to just using a lot of qualitative words like increased, made efficient. You're going to need to probably show some more percentages, something that they may be able to call and verify through a reference, because you're in a show not tell area, because they're looking at you and saying, how is it possible that she accomplished all of this when look at her, she's 14. So you have that little bit of a challenge in having to really show some hard numbers, something really quantifiable in your resume or your narrative that shows that. For you, it would be helpful to have your LinkedIn page have as much robust skills and recommendations as you can get. So enough people singing your praises helps to build that credibility. Not that it hurts anybody, but certainly someone in your position, it's much, much better if you can build that credibility slowly rather than having to do it all at once. I wish I had that same problem, but I don't.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Shari.
Do you have anything?
Oh, was that you or did someone else unmute?
Nope, not me.
Okay.
I'm good.
All right. So Jacqueline asks, how would you address salary on the resume, or do you have to add a phone number?
Jackie, can you possibly unmute and clarify?
I'm sorry, that's two separate questions.
Okay, give them to me both.
Okay, if you're a certain person, I guess I will fall underneath ageism. I'm not sure. I don't think I do, but hey, that's what society said. When you go for a job, you're accustomed to making a certain salary. Then how do you show the new company that you're worth what you're asking for? That's first. And on the second part, when you're doing the resume, on the top part, do you have to add a phone number, or could you just add an email address?
Okay, so I'm gonna answer the second question first, because that's an easier question. Yes, you need a phone number on your resume. What you don't need on your resume today is a physical address. Because
Okay.
lots of people have implicit biases to neighborhoods and zip codes, so you do not have to have a physical address on your resume. No one needs to know where you live.
That's why I was asking.
But you absolutely need a phone number. They need to be able to reach you. If And phone numbers today, no one judges a zip code anymore, an area code anymore, because people are so mobile that you may have gotten your phone when you were, I'm going to say if you're a little older, you got your phone at 20, 23, and it's your same number, but you've moved to 7 states. So yes, a phone number, but not a physical address. So that's the easy one. The harder question is, how do you address salary? You do not address salary on your resume. And
No, this isn't the resume part. This is if you should get in and get the interview.
Oh, absolutely. You can address salary in your interview. The challenge is doing your research ahead of time. So if you're going for an interview for a job that you know is a little junior to where you're at, or a little senior to where you're at, either way, it doesn't matter. You have to have some sense of what the salary range is before you go in, and have what I call your feather room to move on. And for round numbers, let's say you're accustomed to making 10, and you know this job only pays up to 8. Can you live with 8.5? Can you live with 9? Because you need to know that before you go in. And everything is negotiable, including salary. Even if they tell you it isn't, it's always okay to ask. One of the issues being women, and I don't like to do a lot of gender work because it bothers me, but 25% women in general leave 25% of their benefits on the table because they don't ask the question. It's that simple. Just ask. The worst thing they say is no. So yes, you need to address salary in the interview. You need to be able to address it realistically, though. If the job you're looking for and you've done the research and it just tops out at 85 and you're asking for 120, you know that's not reasonable. They're not going to make that kind of jump. So yes, address it, but you want to address it realistically. Now, if you're asking for something on the higher end, you want to be able to show your value that you should have that. And again, that goes back to being able to show accomplishment, have it be verifiable, have it be credible, to show that what you're bringing is of high value.
Okay, I have one more question. And
Why?
Based on the statistics, they're saying that women earn less than men, and then afterwards they start breaking it down by color. So when it comes to a woman of color, if we already have all of these statistics against us, then how do we get to where we need to be so we too can get part of the equity? I'm sorry, tell me, So that's what I'm trying to find out. How do we get to where everybody else is with what we have?
So honestly, being informed is your best offense to that. So women tend to make less than men only in certain industries. That has now changed somewhat. So some industries, they actually make more than men, but as a general rule, women make less than men. Yes, women and people of color, even men of color, tend to make less than women in general. So the best offense to that is to be prepared with what you know that salary pays primarily. So if the salary is going to pay a white man, let's say $100,000, and in this particular vertical, women are only making 70 cents on the dollar. That means you're going in at 70,000 just because you're a woman, and a woman of color is making 60 cents on the dollar. You know going in that they're going to attempt to get you to take $40,000 less than that they would pay a white man. So knowing your stats and your information, and knowing that if the ideal candidate for them is a white man with X amount of experience and X amount of education, and you have that same merit and that same background, then you can ask for the same salary and you can point to your research of what they pay. And some of this takes some research, it takes some digging, but being armed with your information is the best offense you can ever have. Additionally, lack of fear of asking and confidence in asking. Because one of the reasons why those stats are that way is because women, and primarily women of color, they don't ask. We don't ask. We take what's given and we walk away. And men, white men primarily, but men of color as well, they ask. So that's part of the challenge.
Thank you so much for answering my question and not making me feel less than. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're not less than, even a little bit. Any other questions? Do we have more coming our way?
We do. Okay. How can you find out the pay for a job? If they don't list it on the job opening.
So whoever just asked that, I'm so with you. I hate when they don't list it on the job, but they purposely don't. So it takes some digging. There are some places you can go, like you can use Monster and ZipRecruiter, and the Bureau of Labor Statistics from the government. There's places where you can find, general estimated salary for the job with the educational background and the level. And a lot of times it'll work in quadrants. So you can get a sense of if it's in a state that has a higher cost of living, they may give you a range. In a state that has a lower cost of living, or tax situations, and you should be able to get a good sense from there. That's one way. Second way is, this is where the informational interviews come in. If you can get to chat with somebody in the company, that's a question you can ask. Hey, what are the general salaries, with regard to what the market's bearing? And again, it's a lot of legwork to get this information. There's a reason why they don't want it so public, but asking around and doing the research, you can get it. And sometimes it's misleading. And one of the things when I'm working with clients, especially when we're doing job searching, I very often recommend that we don't job search by title and that we job search by skill, because titles change and levels change depending on the company. And oftentimes we think a salary fits with a certain title, and it could be very different depending on the company. So oftentimes it's important to do that research and find out, for where you live and the level of company and the level of position, what that salary might be. I don't know if that answer for whoever asked that question. If not, please tell me, I'll follow up. How are we doing, Jill? We're still good?
You're good.
We are good. All right. Am I good on time? Normally I'm not. So where am I on time?
No, you are good. You flew through that.
Happy New Year for me.
Okay, so another.
Was I too fast?
No, you are always wonderful, Shari. No, the information is really good and it's direct. So, okay, so another kind of salary question. You kind of already covered it, but can you ask about salary when they call you to schedule the first interview? Would that be appropriate?
So this is another one of my yes and no answers. So yes, it is, especially if you have a feeling that it may be off from where you're at. So again, if you think that your range should be 100,000 and you think this job may be at 50, 55, 60, then yes, ask. And you can ask very nicely, hey, read the description, very interested, know I sent my resume in, but I don't want to waste anybody's time, yours or mine. The salary range I'm looking for is 100,000. Can you give me a sense? Is this worth continuing to have a conversation? Because you don't want to waste your time or theirs. So it's okay. If you think it's going to be close, sometimes you want to be very fluid and sort of wait through the interview and see if there's a good opportunity. Sometimes they'll tell you. Sometimes right there in that first schedule of the screen, the person will say to you, so what's your salary range? Or I want to make sure you're aware that this job pays X to X. But yes, you have to sort of use your intuition a little bit. But if you think there's going to be a big disconnect in salary, then absolutely ask. Because again, you don't want to waste your time. Or you make the choice to waste your time for practice and interviewing or getting to know the company or getting to know the players. That's okay too. But that, again, it's a conscious choice that you're making through that.
I love that. Thanks, Shari. I was going to say that practice tip was so helpful. I think one of you guys helped me out with that before I joined Amla Vita, and accepting some of those that might not have aligned, and it's always really good practice.
Yeah, the practice is the key. Out loud. Yeah, for sure.
Especially nowadays with doing interviews from Zoom. I know that's always challenging too, which I feel is a whole other conversation.
Yeah. Oh, so I was going to say, my client that I literally just had right before this is having an interview right now. Fingers crossed, everybody on the call for her. And that's what we talked about, is that you really need to practice out loud today to feel comfortable with your language and your words, because the language changes all the time. All the time.
Absolutely.
Do we have any other questions?
We do. So we have,
okay.
Yes. So we have another question. So actually from Jacqueline, how many years of work should be added to the resume? So side note, so Jacqueline, we actually have a really, really awesome webinar that we do specifically for resume building. And we have really, really phenomenal resources on that, but we actually do the resume workshop, I think almost at least once a month or every other month. So if you want to dig into, Shari, you can answer this question, but just for resources, I'll make sure to include some of those additional resources for anyone else that has questions around the resume. But I'm sure that's, at least for this one, I think that's a quick answer for you, Shari.
Thank you, Jacqueline, for asking that question. And thank you, Jill, for telling us. Our resources for resumes are incredible. General rule, and this is a general rule, no more than 15 years from today's date back. Now, the caveat to that is if you're at the same company, it gets dicey, you have to play with it. And if the experience that you have prior to 15 years is what's most relevant, then it needs some zhuzhing, a little lipstick. You have to play with it a little bit to get it to work right. But typically 10 to 15 years is all you want to show on your resume. So.
Awesome. Okay. And then this is the last one for now. So any suggestions on being considered, or what to, any suggestions on being considered, or what to do if you are, or they think you are all right, Sierra, I might need to have you ask this question. I'm not, at the age most women become mothers. So I'm assuming it's a question about age around being a mother.
Women in childbearing years, Sierra, is that what you're asking about?
Yeah, just because you hit on that, and I feel as though that, like, that could happen. Like you were saying, I had never really heard of that, and I think I'm at the age where I could have that, but I'm not interested in that. So it's kind of like, how do I get over that? And I guess advice for other people as well, that maybe if they are interested in that, how, do you get a job during that time if that's what they think your future is going to be, or your near future?
This is one of those, like, I could get on my soapbox and we can do this for like another 20 minutes, maybe an hour, on just childbearing women, childbearing age. It's so unfair. So if you are childbearing age and you are not planning on having children, during your interview, during your narrative, anytime you're networking, you can spend a lot of your time talking about your plans that surround career. You don't need to tell anybody that you're not planning having children, because it's really not their business. But there's a lot of different ways you can drop into the conversation that your priority is career, your priority is building XYZ, your plans include things that take the focus off what you're doing in your personal life, other than things that would include, that would probably be maybe not child-friendly things, like, hey, we're planning to go skydiving weekly. Something that takes the focus and the feeling that they want to have that conversation with you. That's the sort of path of least resistance way to handle it. And the second way is to come right out and say so. I don't like that for me, and this is a personal opinion. I don't like that for me, and I often will work with my clients to find what's comfortable for them, because honestly, it's not the employer's business what you're doing with your reproductive organs in any way, shape, or form. So it's illegal for them to ask. So once again, we're having this whole seminar on what's illegal to say and not say, and it happens regularly. So for me, I find ways to sort of build it in and take the focus off. You can just straight out tell them. For those of you who are planning on having children, same thing. Not their business what you're planning to do. Unless it's up and coming super fast and you want to know what kind of maternity benefits there are. Going in knowing that is you're letting them know that your priority isn't going to be their job. And as an employer, remember, the employer's interest is, what can you do for me? What value can you bring to me? What contribution can you make immediately? So it gets a little muddy in this area, especially. But for me, the easiest way, path of least resistance, is just taking the focus off your age, focus off what could happen during your age, and concentrate on the job and what you bring to the job. Sierra, I hope that was helpful. It's a tough spot.
That was a lot of help. It was something that I really didn't think of, but since you had mentioned it earlier, I thought I would try to get some tips. So
happy to ask it. It puts women in a really tough spot in today's day and age, especially because, and hopefully this will change as the people in lead positions are changing, but we also put childbearing years in a very specific age frame, and that also isn't as true anymore. And sometimes the people who are hiring or in control or who are setting that criteria forget that women have babies in lots of different ages, but we do primarily stay in that, mid 20s to mid 30s that they look at, because they're figuring you're having 1, 2, 3 kids and coming out of the workforce each time. So we're seeing some change in that, but not as much as I personally would like to say. Okay, any other questions before I tell you that I'm a real person? And this is my email, because I like to steal this from Jill. Jill, do we have any other quick questions before I go and wrap up?
Well, Carla asked, which I think was kind of at least a lot of this, the whole webinar, what's your advice for those 50 and over looking for a job? Or maybe if there's like one quick tip you might be able to share.
Am I allowed to say dye your hair? No, I'm not. I'm not allowed to say dye your hair.
Come on, Shari.
Dye your hair. Honestly, the best thing when you're age 50 or older is to, at this point, pick something that you're happy with, pick something that aligns with your personal values, and make sure that you can damn well show how valuable you can be. Your age is literally just a number. That's all it is. That you can bring immediate impact to the job, and that your age is actually a major benefit for them. And again, that goes back to knowing the language, knowing the job description, knowing your vertical market, and being really current with what's happening so you can talk the right language. That's really the key. Okay, and dyeing your hair doesn't hurt. I'm not gonna lie. I haven't in a long time, but it doesn't hurt. The appearance of youth, unfortunately, is important in job seeking. If you have any other questions, if anybody has any other questions, please, please, please reach out. Here's my email. I'm stealing this from Jill. She always likes to say there's actually people behind this. Email goes directly to my inbox. Please use it. If you like what you've heard, if you think that ALV could help you, like I said before, look for something that aligns with your passions. Look for something that makes you feel good. That's what we do here at ALV. That's what all the coaches do. We're constantly working with our clients to get them to their next step. What does their next level look like? Whether it's leadership, whether it's life, whether it's health and wellness, whether it's career, whether it's all of those. Our coaches work with you, and we share clients often if there's other things that need to be addressed. We all have our levels of expertise. So please, if you're interested, book a free consult with a relationship specialist. The relationship specialists are awesome. They take about a half an hour with you. There's no cost to that. They go over where you're at, what you're looking to do, get a sense of how you work, who you work best with, and they match you with a coach. And if you do decide to become a member at ALV, your first session is free just because you listened to this webinar and you came. Additionally, this until the end of the month, so this is a really, really tight turnaround. We're offering 15% off all of our annual memberships just till the end of January 2021. It's sort of a new year, new you type feel. Our most popular membership is a 2-time-a-month membership, and if you choose to do 15% off and prepay your annual membership, it takes about $700 off your price. So when you speak to your relationship specialist, please, please, please make mention of that as well. And would love to hear from some of you. So hope this was valuable for you. I always love getting online and chatting, and hope to hear from some of you with questions. Have a great day.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Shari, and thank you everyone so much for joining. These were really, really, really awesome questions. And another thing too, I know that there were some specific questions around like resumes, and we actually have, because I just created the link for it, the LinkedIn Like a Pro event that is coming up, where Shari and John will be able to, our other coach will dig into upgrading and updating LinkedIn. So I feel that that is another thing to mention. So I'll make sure to share information about that as well.
Oh, and that's a fun one.
Yes, that's always a fun one.
Definitely get a dad joke.
Oh, always. Duh. Yeah, so I'll make sure to include some of that information in the recap email that I'll be sending out most likely tomorrow, if not at the end of the day. So keep an eye out for that. If you're not subscribed to our events newsletter, I will also include that so you can make sure that you do not miss any more of these super awesome events that we have. So thank you all so much for joining. We had a lot of fun with a much needed topic. So if you, like Shari said, if you have any questions that are lingering, feel free to reply back to that email. Shari will be copied on it, so she'll be able to see those. So thank you all so much.
Thank you all for coming. Talk to you soon.
All right. Have a good one, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.